Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here, and this week we're going to come to you with part 2 of diving into the Blunami app, showing you where all the cool stuff is and how to find it. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, as we started our series a few weeks back, we started into some of the general settings and some of the stuff that may not be immediately obvious to you. So today we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive and we're going to show a little bit more of it as we work through the series, just to try to help keep these videos short. So here on my screen you can see I've got my Blunami app open. I'm connected to my Tier 4 GEVO right here. And this time we're going to go ahead and press multi-train. Okay, so as you can see on our screen, we've got the BNSF Tier 4 GEVO sitting here. Now, this throttle is narrowed down so that you can actually see where we have room for 3 visible on the screen. Now, if you were connected to 6 locomotives, you could move those side to side so that you can access all 6 locomotives at a time. Now, today we're just going to talk about one, and I'll get more into some of the other features with this particular one screen here later. But you can play around. You can see you've got the standard function stuff. You've got your headlight, of course. We have our bell. We have our short horn. And then, of course, we have our long horn. Now, on here you can see we have our consisting button, and we've actually done some consisting videos in the past using the new app, so be sure to check those out, but I'll get to that in a later video. We have our throttle knob, of course, move up and down, our direction switch, which means we can change directions, loco stop, and then down here at the button you can see the FCN, which is our functions, and the gear to get into our settings. So first off, we're going to go ahead and press functions. Now you'll notice on the screen that it covers up my throttle. Well, you can simply tap the name at the very top of the function list, and you can see that it actually moves it over to the other side, so it's free and clear of your locomotive here that you're working on. So that way you don't have to worry about trying to close the functions, you can leave them open. Now again, as I've mentioned, you can notice all the functions here are labeled. Now these are function mapped to my personal taste, so you can take a look and see those. And then when we go to 15 to 28, you can see handbrake, fuel loading. And then down below you can see all the lights that I've got on there. And you'll notice that I have the courtesy lights actually on the locomotive. So those are just some of the things you can see when you're operating here. But today's video, I want to dive into the settings. So we're going to go ahead and hit our gear for gear settings. Now, last time we talked to general settings. Today we're going to go into sound settings. So we click that, and you'll see several menus options here. So you got master volume, which of course allows you to go in and adjust the master volume, whether you use a slider bar or if you type in a number here in the number box, you can simply do this. So if I wanted to change this to say 150, I can do that, and you can see the slider bar change with me. Now I can hit OK to accept, or I hit cancel. Since I'm not really wanting to change my locomotive, I'll go ahead and hit cancel, but you can see how it's being done. So when I hit cancel, you'll see that my master volume is still at 75. Now this is where I can go into my main sounds. Now I have my prime mover here. This is where I can go in and select all the different prime movers, so I can go through the list, see all the different ones that are there, and then you'll see the Tier 4 GEVO is actually grayed out on the screen, showing you that's the setting that you already have. So if you wanted to hear that one again, you can click it, but as you go through the list, and you can see we're going to hit FDL 16. Now the prime mover is not started, so it would change right now so that you can actually hear the change, and I can either cancel or hit OK. Again, I'm going to hit cancel, but that's where you're going to do that. Now you can go in and adjust the volume. You can add reverb or echo if you want, and you can shift the pitch. Now on my particular one, and I'm going to go ahead and start the prime mover up. So let's go ahead and get him started. Go back to our gear settings here and go to sound. We're going to go back to main sounds. Now as the prime mover is starting up, it's pretty slow to get going. It's the Tier 4 GEVO. Takes a minute to settle in. Now once we're going, I can come in here. You can see my volume for the prime mover is 75, which is intentionally low. But again, if I wanted to change this to 225, you can instantly hear the change. So you can decide whether you like it, hit OK, or you can change it again We can change it down. We can change it to 200. And again, you can hear those instant changes as we go through. Now, again, I'm not interested in changing my settings, so I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. And you can see the prime mover drop back down to 75 where it was when we started. But the pitch shift here, the pitch shift allows you to another way to make the prime movers all sound different. So you can adjust the pitch down a little bit, or you can pitch it up a little bit, so that way you can go in and adjust them differently. So if I take this, listen to how the prime mover changes. And you can kind of hear how it changes the pitch and the overall tone of the sound of the prime mover. Now, I personally like them down a little bit, but you can do this to any way you like, whatever sounds good to you. You're still maintaining that Tier 4 GEVO characteristic, but you're just shifting the pitch a little bit so that they sound a little differently. That's just one of the things I like. Now here you can also adjust engine notch rate, where you can determine how many speed steps it takes to increase the diesel engine RPM. Next up is the horn. You can see the horn, we click on that, and then again we have the full menu list of all the different air horns that we have to choose from. Now this Tier 4 GEVO actually has a Nathan K5LH, so you can see that it's grayed out. So we can go through, we can try an M5, if we want to try a P5, you can go through and try any of these different horns, and as you select them, it will play them so that way you can hear the difference. RS5T. Now again, if you like it and you decide that's the one you want, you hit OK. If you don't, you hit cancel, and it goes back to the way it was before we started playing with the settings. Now you can see again, we've got our horn, our volume, reverb. Then we have our type of bell, and again, the same thing. You can try the different types of bells that you want to listen to. And I'm not going to go through every single menu item, but you can go through here. Air compressor. This should be the GEVO series. So we'll go ahead and change that. And you can see I've got the volume setting there, reverb, coupler sounds. I personally don't use the coupler sounds, so I leave it off. Then I can change poppet valve or air dryer. This should be an air dryer. And you can change the volume settings and all this stuff. So this is just some of the main sounds. Now when it comes to other sounds, you can go in there and adjust the volume settings of dynamic brake, your radiator fans, your low pressure alarm bell, or your startup bell. And this is where you can set up your train brake applications and release volumes, as well as the braking rate. And we've done another video on the braking rate a few weeks back, so be sure to go back and check that out as well. We have our independent brake application, independent brake release. So you can see how all these sounds are different. Now genset, this isn't a genset, but if I had that, I can go in and adjust the prime movers for the second and third genset prime mover. We've got our cab doors, relay clicks, all of this stuff. You can see that you can adjust the individual volume as well as add in reverb or echo to it. Next up, we have other settings. These are some different things. Engine RPM interlock. This prevents you from accidentally manually shutting the prime mover down while you're moving. And also, it'll also prevent you from being able to move your locomotive before the prime mover started. You can't move your locomotive if you don't have a power source. So you've also got engine auto start. You'll notice I have it disabled, which means I will then want to start the prime movers myself. Grade crossing bell enable. This is where when I blew the longhorn, you heard the bell ring after. That's where you would do this. Emergency stop. You can set the engine to idle or to shut off completely. Again, it depends on your prototypes and your models. And quiet time. Now, this is where we come down to reverb. You can add in some custom reverb or echo into every single sound effect, including but not limited to Fireman Ed's toilet flush. Why you would do that, I don't know, but you have the ability to do that. So here you can see I have the long reverb, and then what these settings will do, we'll go back to main sounds where I have my air horn. You can see that I've got about 50% of that long reverb or long echo being fed back into the sound of the air horn. So that's why you hear it tone off a little bit. So you can adjust this for every single sound effect. Add a little atmosphere to your locomotive. Next up is the equalizer. This is where we can adjust the overall tone and intensity of the various frequency ranges that the speaker can make. Now, because these typically in HO are small speakers, you'll notice that my custom EQ has the lowest setting at 62 Hertz down to 0. Why is that? Because 62 Hertz can't be heard on these small speakers. The lowest ones our cube speakers can do is 100 Hertz. So you'll notice that I boosted 125 Hertz in there. So with the 2 cube speakers in this particular model, I can boost that up a little bit. Same with the 250 Hertz, 500. You can kind of see you start to perform a little bit of a bell curve. And this is where you use the user adjustable. Now at the top you have a high pass filter. We can take this and cut out more of that low frequency by just moving the throttle or the slider bar. And you kind of hear how that low end is going away. When I go back down, you start to hear that low frequency coming back. So I'm going to leave it at 20 just because I know that lowest frequency the speaker physically can't reproduce. And then you've got alternate sound mixer. This is a second set of volumes that you can enable by a function, which is disabled by default, but you can enable this to where a function button can turn on a secondary mix of audio mixers. So you can have a setting for, say, home, and then another set of settings for club, and then you enable it by a function. So where you run more would be the default, and then when you go to, like, say, for example, take it to the club where you run occasionally, you can hit the function and turn up the volume, make it much louder. And this is all the individual ones. By default, they tend to be about 50%. I personally don't use this feature, but this is how it works. And then the last up, you have alternate or automatic sound enabled. And this is where you can turn on an auto bell, where if you start moving at speed step between X and X, you'll hear the bell play. Or I'm sorry, speed step 1 or 2 or 3, it'll start and then play for 15 seconds. Auto brake enable, I again don't use that. I use the function buttons, but if you wanted to, this is where you can enable it. So this is a quick look at the overall sound set for the menus. And then next time we'll go through the light settings, speed settings, and so forth as we work our way through the app. But this will give you a much better understanding of the features, where to find the adjustments to make to your decoder. But remember, always have the user's guide handy, because if you don't understand how the settings are made, you could play around with this all day long, but you may not get the desired result. So be sure you have the user's guide to understand what you're changing, and then you can use the app to change all your settings for you. So with that, we'll go ahead and close this one out. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.